It's time to rise and shine! Get ready for your second day of active service here at Last Defense Academy! Well, it's your second day, but technically your first morning, so let's start it off on the right foot! I've prepared a fabulous breakfast banquet to give you plenty of energy and bloodlust for the day ahead! Everyone, make your way to the cafeteria, on the double!
With that, welcome back to our continued investigation into all the secrets of the game Last Defense Academy. The 100th line, Last Defense Academy.
Good intro.
I am here with Neo once again, and we're going to start our character analysis. But there is a lot we have to get through before we can even start that.
If it sounds like I'm constantly growling, I'm still suffering from cold. Otherwise...
Yeah, unfortunately, Neo is, I guess first off, we assume that you've seen all of every route in the game, blah 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 blah, so please just, we're gonna spoil things. Now that I can say that Neo is suffering from the, hemoanima rejection symptoms.
Yeah, currently, yeah. I gotta find a commander at some point, maybe later in the week.
Yeah, anyways. Okay, so, as usual, we have to make core assumptions. Not quite the same core assumptions as last time, there's a few more. But we will get to that in a second. The first core assumption, this is the one that will always hold true, unless otherwise stated, Takumi is a reliable narrator. If we see it happen in game, and we have no reason to suspect it's fake, even though that would make some routes so much easier to explain, we have to assume it's real. Trust me, we'll get to that. Not next week, but sometime relatively soon. The next thing. We are going to be talking a lot about what is considered, I guess, what is everyone calls the truth route, but is also referred to as the second to last, or no, the second, what do they call it again?
Second scenario.
Yeah, second scenario, thank you. That is because we are going to be focusing a lot, especially on well, I'll just say it, 13 of these characters. We're going to be focusing on the nature of their fake lives and why they were given the memories they were given. And that leads us to our second core assumption. Every fake memory has to have been intentional by Project Exodus. Yes, even that person's. The reason I can say this with confidence is because there are one of two possibilities, which we will explore a bit more into later. Either every memory was very, very deliberately scripted to be what it is, or Project Exodus had a means to watch the memories. Now, and so, it is hard for me to imagine that a simple glitch in the system could really escape their notice. Thankfully, we're not talking about that today. So, Neo.
Yes.
What do you know about Takumi?
Takumi, basically since the very start of the game, you get pretty much everything about him. He's just a normal, average, everyday man with a childhood best friend named Kadoa.
Yep.
And he is suddenly given powers and sent to war.
Basically, but what do you think the goal with Takumi was?
The goal.
Yes, this is this is why I'm doing these character analysis, because I've been curious what the goal with implanting the memories that gave Takumi was.
Well, the thing is, if we're going by first scenario rules, I feel like I can't really say his whole goal was to be a leader, because that's definitely not what it looked like.
100%, and thank you for pointing that out, Neo. So, I'm actually going to make my big thesis statement with most of these character analysis right now. This isn't the thesis statement for the Takumi video that you're currently watching. This is the big one. Every single student had a very specific goal that Project Exodus wanted for them. For every single one, that goal was a dismal failure. And there are a couple reasons for why that we will get into a little bit later in this video. And by a couple, I literally do mean one for Route 0 and one for all the other routes. But yes. So, before we even get into the specifics of Takumi, let's talk about why everything failed. Eito killed Sire.
Yep, that was not supposed to happen.
No, it wasn't. And because of this, they could not push for the goals that they actually wanted. And after I explain what the original intention for Takumi is, you'll realize why Sire discovering Takumi as a time traveler changes everything. So, it's time for the big moment. Takumi's entire purpose for being in the Special Defense Unit was, drumroll please, to die.
To die?
Yep. To die.
But why?
See, okay, before we get to that, let's talk about it. So, what is it that is pressed in Takumi's memories?
Sorry, your mic cut out for a second.
I'll fix the Discord. Give me a second, I'm turning this over to I'll fix my Discord sensitivity again. Ugh. It's really annoying. I'm trying to get like a good balance. Anyways, back in. Okay, so what is pressed into Takumi's memories?
What's pressed is the just the normal everyday life, his family.
I mean, but there's a specific line that comes up again and again and again and again and again.
Just a normal, average,
Nope.
everyday high school student.
Nope.
No.
That is the line that gets pressed up in a different game. No. When it comes to Kara, it is his
I
promise.
believe what you're talking about is the one where he like constantly says fight.
Not even that. No, not even that. That's something else. It's the fact that he has a desire to protect Kara no matter what. His memories have no talk about him surviving. And I think there's a reason for that. Takumi, to be clear, and as is probably obvious if you paid any attention, none of the Special Defense Unit were meant to make it to the satellite. But Takumi especially was supposed to be the first one dead. And I mean dead.
The question is, why would they die?
A couple reasons. The first off, I want to note, the people behind Project Exodus are utter and complete idiots.
Yeah, as humanity tends to be.
But these guys especially, like, it is no secret. First off, why the hell is there only one Sire?
Yeah.
But more than that, the entire whole thing they want to do is wage a war against people they could have totally lived peacefully with. They don't think hard. What they were probably thinking was they would have this super likable guy be an early casualty of the war, thus ensuring that everyone else has higher motivations. That being said, there is another reason they wanted Takumi to die early.
What's that other reason?
Nozomi. Now, what's important to remember is Nozomi was never, ever supposed to go. That is made clear, like, every time it comes up. Like, they make a point to have... If Nozomi and Sirei make it alive together to a certain threshold of days, they make a point of having Sirei say, "Who's Nozomi?"
Yeah.
But it is a fact that although it was erased from Nozomi's mind very early on, Nozomi did interact with Takumi.
And that was when Takumi was still kind of in the pod.
Oh yeah, he was in the pod for like up until the game starts.
Yeah.
But what's important about that is, first off, they made a point to make Kara look like Nozomi, because it was easy for them to do. But it also created a problem for them. If, by some unlikely scenario, the Last Defense Academy kids survived the ultimate fate they were supposed to have, which, to be clear, we will at some point talk about which routes they do and which they don't, because I have opinions. But, if they did somehow do that, and Nozomi saw this kid who looks like it, the brainwashing they did to her would come undone. We know that brainwashing is fragile. If it isn't done super duper properly, it'll become undone very quickly. And even if it is done properly, it can get undone.
And we've seen it get undone multiple times.
Correct. So, it even happens to Nozomi. Heck, Takumi is like super resilient to it. Specifically this brainwashing. Yes, it does affect him, but not as nearly as much as it affects other people. But that is even besides the point. The point is, they wanted to make sure Takumi was the first to go. That way, that was not even a possibility. And what they probably would have had happened is, if you note, just how Sirei does when someone needs to deploy the bomb. Which, I bet you that was always the plan. Someone would have to make the ultimate sacrifice.
And that was supposed to be Takumi.
Yes. You'll even note in the coming of age routes, it is Takumi. He finds a way around it that no one could have predicted. Which, I will honestly say, just as like an aside, going from coming in age to the other routes and be like, I know there's a way around this. Makes me feel. But anyway, that's besides the point. They probably would have, Sirei would have probably, whether it be that bomb or some other scenario, prompted Takumi to make some kind of sacrifice, which would have enraged everyone else. And obviously, Sirei wasn't there in Route 0, and as soon as Takumi comes back from the future and Sirei realizes he has future knowledge, well, that's suddenly not an option.
So now everything's like a whole mishmash.
Correct. Now, there is something else we need to talk about before we can end tonight's video. So we're not cutting it short on just this. Don't worry, the rest of the analysis are going to be just that, character analysis. So we know, obviously, Takumi was supposed to die. We've established this, they were all supposed to die eventually anyways, but that's beside the point. He doesn't die because of time travel. Is Takumi looping or just traveling once? You might say, but does... I asked, is Takumi looping or just traveling the one time? Now, a little bit into SF. SF does kind of sort of answer this, but whereas Takumi is a reliable narrator, Hiroko definitely isn't, and I don't think she gets it at all. And we will talk more about Hiroko, obviously, and that entire mess at a later date. Because it is a mess. In the best possible way, but it is. But I don't think she entirely gets it, and as folks have noted, it seems the routes Takumi is experienced and the routes that Hiroko have are different.
Whether that be something Takumi kind of chooses to do, or in some we have seen what Hiroko chooses to do.
We don't know. What we can say with confidence is Takumi is able to somehow remember other routes. But it is not as consistent as it is with Hiroko. And that is... I'm not answering that question tonight. I am so sorry. Let's see. Alright, Neil. Any questions you have about Takumi you'd want to answer?
Well, here's the... Their whole plan, the Exodus project, was to have everyone die eventually, right?
Yep.
Why the fuck did they build that spaceship back
It is
in the first place?
Honestly, Neil, the honest answer, and this isn't directly to Takumi, but I'll answer it anyways, to ensure they die. We are eventually going to talk, actually, next week, a bit more on the nature of what Hemogoblin can and can't do. And with that in mind, the limitations that even the Undying Flame Bombs have. I will spoil next week's video right here, right now. They're a lot weaker than we think. A lot weaker. But the honest answer is they didn't know what would happen. So it was probably easier to have them be there than not be there. Also, what do you think the students would do if there wasn't a spaceship? What have they done in several routes where there haven't been a spaceship?
Stop the project.
Exactly.
They would either try and kill the baby or rescue the baby.
Exodus Project would not consider rescue the baby as an option.
Well, yeah.
They would not have. Which is why you'll note, no endings where they rescue the baby do the big giant robots come out. Anyways, with all that in mind, yeah, things got ruined, and that is about what we have on Takumi for the time being. To be clear, there's a lot more to talk about Takumi, but that's more out throughout the various routes. Well, we got a very, very special route that we're going to be covering next week. We'll be cutting into it, or in other words, we'll slash it.
Oh.
Anyways, join us then. But more importantly than any of that,